ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। One second. Okay, Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone for our meeting today. We'll be looking at 4 verses from Yamunacharya's gitartha sangraha and also Ramanujacharya's commentary of 4 verses of Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. Okay, so that's the agenda for the day. So I have just sent something on the group, so we can just open that PDF because this Yamunacharya's verses are there in that particular PDF that I have sent. So you may just want to refer that. Yeah. So, the first one, which is called as Gitartha Sangraha. So if you open that, you can see, this particular, it's a 32 verse compilation by Shripad Yamunacharya on Bhagavad Gita. So the way he has done it is, the first verse summarizes entire Gita. The second, third, and the fourth verses summarize 666 chapters of the Gita. And then there is one verse per chapter. And then there are some concluding verses. So like this, he has, compiled approximately 32 verses. So we can even, so we will be looking at only 4 verses today. That is an overview of the Gita, the way he has given. And then, we will go into some discussion related to this. So the first one, if you see, maybe you can just recite after me, all those who are present here. Swadharma Jnana Vairagya Sadhya Bhaktyeka Gocharaha Narayana Param Brahma Gita Shastre Samiritaha. So basically, in this verse, he has summarized what is to be the contents of the entire 18 chapters. Okay, so he says, what is the Gita Shastra? What is it addressing? Narayana Param Brahma. It is addressing the Supreme Lord Narayana. Bhakti Eka Gocharaha, and the goal is Bhakti, and it is using three things as tools. One is Swadharma, which is basically Karma Yoga, everything related to that. Jnana, because there are chapters of Gita which talk about the importance of that, and Vairagya, that means a general detached disposition. So using these three things as sadhya, the goal of the Gita is saying is bhakti only. Bhakti eka gocharaha. Bhakti is the goal to the Parabrahma, the Supreme Lord, Narayana. So in this way, he has summarized, 18 chapters. Then what he does is, in subsequent three verses, he talks about 666 chapters. So we will look at that a little more deeply. So look at verse number 2. You can just recite after me. Jnana karmatmike nishthe yoga lakshyeshu samskrite atmanubhutir siddhyarte purva shatkena chodite. Okay, so purva shatka. So shatka means we can simply understand the Sanskrit. Shatka means 6. So purva shatka means the first 6 chapters. So what are the first 6 chapters doing in the Gita? Jnana karmatmike nishthe. So jnana and karma. So nishthe means the path. That means the path of jnana and the path of karma is being discussed in the first 6 chapters. And what is the lakshya? The lakshya is yoga. Okay, so here yoga can be seen either as the dhyana yoga part, which is the last part of the first 6 chapters, or it can be seen as connecting to the Supreme Lord through Bhakti Yoga, whatever, however you can see it like that. So jnana and karma, these two things, nishthe, that means jnana marg and karma marg, using it with the goal towards being situated in yoga. The goal is to be situated in yoga. Susamskrite. This word susamskrite is also very interesting. Susamskrite means purified by. So just like anything like you buy a flower, before you offer the flower to the deities, you see, right? The pujari will, he will susamskrite. He will sprinkle generally what is called as a purified water on it. So there is generally in temples there is a water which is Vishesha Arghya, which has been there are some mantras chanted and it is like purified water and Vishesha Arghya. So they sprinkle it on anything and then only it is offered. Correct? It's not just offered. So susamskrite. And what is the goal? Atma anubhutir siddhyarte. Atma anubhuti means Atma is the self. Atma is self. Anubhuti means to realize it. Okay, to realize the self. Purva Shatkena Chodite. So it's very simple that the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the goal or at the end of it, one basically can come, if one perfects that, one can come to understand the self. It's not because in the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, if you carefully see, Krishna has not got himself into the equation too much. Correct? It is about coming to the platform of self-realization, Atma Anubhuti. That means to experience the pleasure of the self. You could see it like that. So that is the goal of the first 6 chapters, right? Purva Shatkena. The first 6 chapters are like that. So that is how he has defined the goal of the first 6 chapters of the Gita. You will see the third and the fourth also. Then we will go into the discussion. Look at the verse number 3. You can recite after me. Madhyame Bhagavat Tattva Yatatmya Vapti Siddhaye Jnana Karma Vinirvrityo Bhakti Yoga Prakirtitaha. Yeah. So Madhyame means the middle 6. Bhakti Yoga Prakirtitaha. That means Prakirtitaha means it is glorifying, it is bringing out Bhakti Yoga. And how does it bring out Bhakti Yoga? Bhagavat Tattva. That means it brings a lot of understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yatatmya means perfect understanding. So that's what perfect means. Tattva means understanding. Yatyatma means perfect. Avapti means to actually understand that knowledge or realize that knowledge. Siddhaya. Siddhaya means to accomplish. Like we say Siddhi. Na? So that means the middle 6 chapters, their goal is to perfectly understand the tattva of Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, that is what the middle 6 chapters are about. And but he goes on to say jnana karma binir mrityo. That means he says that this bhakti yoga which Krishna has spoken in the middle 6, it is in connection to the first 6. That means it is using the first 6 chapters which spoke about jnana karma, right? It is building on top of that. It is not cancelled all that. Okay, so that is why he says jnana karma binir mrityo. That means uske upar Bhagwan ne bhakti bataya, right? Because he has not the Lord has not cancelled the first 6 chapters when he has said the middle 6. Okay, so here one very important thing we need to understand that this is something very different, in the Gita and other scriptures. Because if you see, generally, like we see the nectar of devotion, we say jnana karmadi anavritam, right? So we generally understand that devotional service has nothing to do with jnana and karma. It is independent of that particular thing. Right? It is independent of varnashram. It is independent of everything. That is correct. There is no question only about it. But the point that is being said here is every book has a psychology. So if you see the Bhagavad Gita itself, that has a psychology. And in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna has spoken Bhakti Yoga, he has taken it as a step ahead of using jnana karma. That means using the karma yoga as a basis, he has introduced it. Correct? So that is very clear. The psychology of the Bhagavad Gita. So please remember, these are two separate things. One is Bhakti Yoga in general, like if you read the Bhagavatam, if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you read general scriptures, Bhakti Yoga is defined in so many scriptures. Correct? But Bhakti Yoga is defined in the Gita also. But the Gita of the Bhagavad Gita takes off on top of the karma. Correct? It is not independent of that. So this is a very, very important point to take in. Otherwise, what could happen is somebody could just minimize, or somebody could think that the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita have no connection, because anyway we want to do Bhakti Yoga only, right? So what is this first 6? What is it talking about doing Karma Yoga, without attachment to fruits and all that? Because वो किए बिना भी कोई भक्त बन सकता है, right? So the answer to that is yes, भक्त बन सकते हो आप as such. बट गीता पर्सपेक्टिव से, मतलब गीता में जिस प्रकार से भगवान ने भक्ति डिफाइन किया, he has defined it on top of that, right? So I hope this point is very clear, right? So Gita, Krishna has not spoken about bhakti yoga to Arjuna independent of speaking about karma. Is the point very clear here? So that is what we are saying. So this is a specific psychology of the book called as Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so that is what is being said here. Okay, so in this way he defines verse number 3, the middle 6 chapters. Now you see verse number 4. If you see that, I have just just for those who came, I have put on the group one PDF about Yamunacharya's book, where we are just reading the first 4 verses before we go into a discussion. So we just read the first 3 verses. We are now into the 4th verse. प्रधान पुरुष व्यक्त सर्वेश्वर विवेचनम कर्मधिर्भक्तिरित्यादि पूर्वशेषोन्तिमोदितः. So basically how Yamunacharya describes the last 6 chapters is whatever has been left behind in the first 12, all that now Krishna puts it in the last 6. So that is how he defines it. Purva Sheshonti Modita. Purva Shesho means pehle jo bach gaya. That means when Krishna spoke about the first 6 and the second 6, some topics were left out. And what were the topics left out? So broadly he says, the commentary to this verse is, there are 2 things. There is tattva and hita. Tattva means understanding certain truths like Atma, Paramatma, Prakriti. Ye sab tattva ho gaya. Correct? These are all tattva. Hita means the process. That is hita. Okay, that means the karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. This is called as hita. Okay, so there is right. So there is tattva and there is hita. So Yamunacharya says in the first part of this verse that we are reading, he is saying that in the now the last 6 chapters you can divide it as first 3 and last 3. मतलब 13 से 15 और 16 से 18. So if you look at 13 से 15, that means 13 to 15 chapter, that is speaking about tattva. So what kind of tattva? Pradhana, Purusha, Vyakta. Vyakta means manifested material world. Sarveshwara means the Supreme Lord. Vivechana means the distinction between all of these. Okay, so he's saying that in the last 6 and the first 3 of the last 6, Krishna is speaking about whatever is left behind in terms of tattva. Okay, so pradhana means the unmanifested matter. Purusha is the atma. Vyakta is the manifestation. So 3 modes of 14वें अध्याय में 3 modes of material nature. Then if you see 15th chapter, the supreme right, the Purushottama yoga. If you see in that chapter, Krishna is talking about all these. Actually, he's talking about Paramatma. He's talking about the Purusha, the conditioned Purusha, the liberated Purusha. All that he's talking. Vyakta is the 14th chapter, the 3 modes of material nature. 13th chapter is also talking about all these only. Pradhana, Purusha, all these things only it is talking about. Vivechana, the difference between all that, tattva. And then what is the next thing to be spoken about? Karmadir bhakti ityadihi. That means in karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, ityadi means that means in the perspective of hita, whatever was left to be described. There are so many things to be left, right? Because if you see the 16, 17, 18 chapter, it basically talks about that only. Karma, different types of karma, the divine, demonic, right? And then the different types of faith that people have. And then 18th chapter again, if you see, it starts from karma yoga and takes you to sharanagati. Correct? So that is all in the domain of hita. So somebody may say, was this not spoken before? Yes, it was spoken before, but some topics were left behind. So all that Krishna is once again saying. Okay. The beauty I liked, one thing very amazing about Sanskrit poetry, if you carefully see, especially the way these people have compiled it, I mean, the Acharyas compiled it, in a very short verse, in a short amount of space, they have actually condensed a lot of meaning in it. If you look at these verses, that's how it is, right? I mean, if you look at all the verses that we just said, right? So dharma jnana vairagya sadhya bhakte ka gochara narayanam parabrahma gita shastre samirita. Full 18 chapter. First 6, jnana karmatmike nishte yoga lakshe susamskrite atmanubhuti siddhyarte purva shatkena chodite. He has made it very clear. The first 6 are for atma anubhuti. It doesn't give you Krishna. That means if somebody says, I practice karma yoga perfectly, can I go back to Godhead? No, you cannot. You will only understand Atma Anubhuti. Maximum by perfecting karma yoga, jnana yoga, one can come to self-realization. That platform. One cannot go back to the spiritual world. Uske liye aapko bhakti karna padega. So it's very clear. So the goal is clear, everything is clear. Then Madhya mein Bhagavat Tattva. Because if you see the middle 6 chapters, so much of Tattva of the Lord is there. Right from the 7th chapter, understanding who is this personality, Krishna, right, and all that. Then Jnana Karma, it is built on top of that. Bhakti Yoga Prakriti, but the middle 6 glorify Bhakti. And then Tattva and Hita, whatever has been left behind, all that Krishna covers in the last 6 chapters. In this way, in a very beautiful way, Sripad Yamunacharya has introduced the entire Bhagavad Gita. And then, as you know, we have been going verse by verse, right, in terms of chapter by chapter. If you see those summaries also, it's an excellent summary. Maybe we'll just look at this also before I go ahead. The main discussion, I'll just come to that. But anyway, I'll use this time to just see 2-3 more verses also in this. Just look at text number 5. I mean, just try to appreciate the compilation here. You can just recite after me. Asthana sneha karunya dharma dharmadiya kulam Partam prapannam uddishya shastravatanam kritam. This is basically the first chapter. If you see again, such a beautiful summary. Asthana sneha karunya. He starts off by hitting at the point. Asthana means where you should not put your sneha and karuna. जहां लव अफेक्शन आपको नहीं डालना चाहिए वहां पर उसने डाला. किसने डाला? अर्जुन ने डाला. Dharma, dharma diya kulam. What is dharma? He thought as adharma and vice versa. He confused between dharma and adharma. And finally, what did he do? Partham prapannam uddishya. He surrendered to the Supreme Personality of God. Ramanacharya in his commentary says that first chapter means till 2.10 is considered like first chapter only, he says, because it's all the same thing that's happening. Shastra avataranam kritam. This is how the Shastra begins, he says. I'm not reading the second chapter one because we have not done that, but we will look at third, fourth, and then we will go into a discussion. If you look at verse number 7 again, it's a beautiful summary of third chapter. असत्यालोक रक्षाये गुणेश्वारोप्य कर्तृताम् सर्वेश्वरे वान्यस्योक्ता तृतीये कर्मकार्यता. So if you remember, we have been discussing this third chapter. So what is the third chapter? So he again, if you see, if the whole third, actually the idea of such verses is the whole chapter comes in one's mind. First he is saying asatya, because Krishna has hammered that left, right, and center in third chapter. Correct? You have to do without asakti to the fruits, right? Then loka rakshaye, this concept of loka sangraha that comes so many times in the Bhagavad. That means it has to be done for the benefit of people. That means somebody cannot say that I am doing gambling in asakti, asatya. No, you cannot do that. Is not for loka rakshana. There is nothing, no loka rakshana happening because of that. Nowadays, gambling is so popular, right? I mean, any video I open nowadays on YouTube, what is that video? Rummy. I've got bored of seeing that lady also who says, मैंने 1.5 crore रुपया जीता है. You must have seen that, those of you who use YouTube videos. Anytime that one Rajasthani lady only is there, इन्होंने 1.5 crore रुपया जीता है. I mean, it's just like anything you open, she's only there. Even our spiritual lectures also, she's only there because it's all monetized, right? So Ravi is only putting ad everywhere, and I learned that people are actually, gambling a lot with this Ravi and all that. So.
Same time also you lose, you can still play.
Yeah.
You get back money.
Yeah. So they very aggressive advertising. So that is not for loka rakshana. There is no loka rakshana there. Asatya loka rakshana. Guneshwaropya. Guneshwaropya means understanding that the modes are forcing me to do. That means, that is there, na, third chapter. Prakriti kriyamanani gune karmani sarvashaha. And फिर आपका 3.27, right? So, right? So in so many places in the Gita, this third chapter, this particular thing comes. It is the modes that is impelling you to work. Sarveshware va nyasyokta. Sarveshwara means to the Ishwara. Nyasyokta means you have to offer it. Like 3.9 says, right? Yajnartat karmano anyatra. So all that. So if you see this verse now, it captures that whole essence of the third chapter. Because third chapter talks about all this only. It talks about doing things without attachment to the fruit, for the benefit of people, understanding that I am under the control of modes, offering it to the Supreme. That is third chapter, he says. Okay, the last verse we are seeing for today is verse 8, which is the summary of the fourth chapter. Prasangat swasvabhavoktihi karmano karmatasya cha veda jnanasya mahatmyam chaturtadhyaya uchyate. So in the fourth chapter is summarized again in a verse very beautifully. Prasangat swasvabhavokti. Prasangat means you all know, right? That means somehow while the discussion happened, prasangat means bato mein, like, intention was not there for Krishna to talk about swasvabhavokti. That means his own nature, why he comes to this world. It just happened as a matter of fact, right? Because Krishna started, if you remember, we've been discussing fourth chapter. We have been saying that how Krishna started by talking about the fact that he instructed this to Vivaswan. Why did Krishna say that? What did he instruct to Vivaswan? This Karma Yoga concept, which is just over. That I instructed to Vivaswan. So Ramanacharya says that Krishna wanted to tell Arjuna, hey, Arjuna, don't think this Karma Yoga is a new thing that I have come up with. Naya theory nahi hai tumko batane ke liye. Just because I want you to fight the war, I have not come up with a new theory like this. That just by working and offering to the Supreme, you will come to the platform of self-realization. I have not made this new theory. The same theory I spoke to Vivaswan also. Then in that prasanga, when he said that, then Arjuna is asking further question, how did you tell him? Then that whole Janma Karma Chame Divyam, all that comes. Right? So that is why he's saying is Prasangat Swasvabhavukti. That means his own nature of appearance in this world, it just came as a matter of fact. Prasangat. That's what Prasangat means. It's a beautiful word actually. It's very difficult to translate that in English. Prasangat means Prasangame. Somehow it just happened. That Swasvabhavukti, it just came. That was not the flow of the Gita. बातों में हो गया. Like sometimes it happens, right? You are talking something to someone, and then he's asking you some question, and then you get distracted only from the whole thing, right? And then you go into some other point topic only, and then after a long time you come back to your topic. So that's what he's saying. Prasangatsa svabhavte. Karmano akarmatasya cha. This is beautiful. This is the second part of the fourth chapter of the book. How to see karma only as akarma. Here, remember, Yamuncarya translates akarma as jnana yoga. Okay, so proper translates akarma we know as inaction, but it's the same thing, right? Because jnana yoga is nothing but inaction. So why he's saying jnana yoga? Because the whole point was in third chapter, Arjuna had this doubt, na? Why should I work if, I mean, right? So that is 3.1 Bhagavad Gita. If jnana is better, then why to do all these things? So Krishna wants to say in karma only you are supposed to see akarma. That means in your work only there is jnana. So that work gets evolved now, because Gita is all about understanding. It's not just about it's about why one is doing something, right? So karmano akarma tasya. That is the second part of the fourth chapter. Veda. This is the third part of the chapter. This is what we discussed last time. Those of you who may attend it, you may remember. But Veda means 13 different types of karma yoga Krishna has mentioned in Gita, and it is so exhaustive, right? If you see that whole thing that we discussed last time, so I'll just summarize that in 2 minutes. So so many different. So Veda means different types of karma yoga. Krishna has so different types of karma yoga besides your varnashram duty. Okay, so like Deva Meva Pare Yajnam, like worshipping various devatas. Krishna has counted that as karma yoga. Okay, people who worship devatas is counted as karma yoga only. Okay, then offering fire sacrifices. That is second type of karma yoga. If you see from 25 onwards, different types of karma yoga. One thing, when we read these things, we can actually appreciate the broad perspective of Gita, and then we can also appreciate that when so many people do so many things in society around us, how that is also connected to what Gita is saying. Correct? Like somebody may be doing some yajna in their house, right? Somebody may be doing, so many people, right? They do various devata puja, etc. It's not that. Again, see, that's the amazing balance of the Gita also. In the fourth chapter only, in 4.12, Krishna said, Kangshatat karmanam siddhim yajam iha devata. I mean, just for temporary fruits, don't keep running behind devatas. But in 4.25, he's saying Deva Meva Param Yagyam Yoginam Paryupasate. There are perfect yogis who know how to perfectly worship the devatas. And even in Prabhupada's translation, this devata is demigod only, because here Krishna is talking about that. So can you see how Krishna has in the same chapter said both things? Why he says that? Because it's very clear. There are some people who may go overboard. You know what I say? Overboard means they may just go too much in this, just for different fruits, going to different Devi Devata, etc. On the other hand, there may be some people who may be worshipping Devata just as a matter of duty. I mean, I personally also have seen there are people like that who during Ganesh festival they will do Ganesh because that's what they have been told to do. So they say we will do it. So then that also becomes a type of karma yoga as per Krishna here. If you do it accordingly, properly, so that's considered like that. Similarly,
Karma yoga also.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, Satya. Yeah, in the mood of detachment. Yeah, that means I'm not doing it, just because I want something, but I'm just doing it for, yeah, just because it ought to be done. So like that. Correct. So similarly, worship, so many sacrifices. Like people do yajna, right? Many times people like to do yajna. So many different types of yajnas are there which people do. Starting with simple thing like you buy a house, then you do, some, what is it called? Vastu. Yeah. So all these yajnas are coming in this category, the second category. That is also considered karma yoga. Then Shrotavya Indriyananya, that is hearing process. I mean, hearing the Shastra, and then, right, reciting the Vedic scriptures. These are all considered as Karma Yoga only. If you see the types, now 13 different types. Last time we discussed this in great detail. Sarvan Indriya Karmani. So if you see, Dravya Yajna, Tapo Yajna, Yoga Yajna, Satapare, Swadhyaya Jnana Yajnascha. Dravya Yajna means giving things in charity. Like people give things, right? Like somebody gives Annadan, Vastradan. So all that is called as Dravya Yajna. That is also considered Karma Yoga. Okay. Then Tapo Yajna, doing some tapasya. People do fasting. Okay. A devotee may do Ekadashi fasting. Somebody may do some type of fasting. There are people who do fasting, right, on certain days. And it's not necessarily that they're doing fasting just because they want something. There may be people like that, but there may also be some evolved people who may be fasting because it ought to be done. Just because it ought to be done, they're fasting. Because I always keep Somvar Upas, I'm keeping it. So I don't know why my father did, my grandfather did, I'm going to do. That's it. There are people who do like that. So that becomes tapasya then, as karma yoga. Yoga yajna. Yoga is also considered that. Then this is interesting. Swadhyaya Jnana Yajna. So Swadhyaya is one, Jnana is another. So Ramanujacharya says Jnana Yajna means learning Sanskrit and learning all Shastras connected to that. Like somebody wants to learn Sanskrit grammar, somebody learns astrology, somebody learns, that means learning the various Vedangas. That is also considered as Karma Yoga. Then Swadhyaya means reading scriptures. You may be, so here the Swadhyaya is very broad. It may be Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. It may even be somebody may be reading the Vedas, the Puranas. Right? People, like if you see so many people are there who during some periods will read this Ramayana. Somebody, 9 days they will read Ramayana. They do all that. So when we see people doing this, we should understand that they have been accommodated in the Gita, because that is coming under Karma Yoga. So like this 13 different types Krishna has said. And all these things Krishna has said is in addition to your basic varnashram. So this is called as Veda. Veda means types. Jnanasya Mahatmya. Jnanasya Mahatmya is the last part of the 4th chapter. That is the glory of Jnana. Now somebody may say, "Arey bhai, suddenly Jnana matlab kyun Jnana Yoga ko wapas glorify kar rahe Bhagwan? Itna sab 3rd chapter Karma Yoga bol ke. Why he came to Jnana Yoga?" So Ramanujacharya says this is not that Jnana of Jnana Yoga. In Karma Yoga only there is the Jnana component. Na? That means in Karma only you see Akarma, right? Correct? So that Akarma, that Jnana has been glorified. So what is the glories of that? So that's how he says. Because the key verse of 4th chapter is there, right? Karma, Akarma, Vikarma, right? We all know that verse, na? Karmanascha bodhavyam, bodhavyascha vikarmana, akarmanascha bodhavyam. Okay, so if you remember last time I said Ramanuja's translation is slightly different there. So what he does is he says karma means he says karma yoga. Vikarma, he translates Vikarma. It's a very interesting thing in Sanskrit. You can break the word anyway, right? So one way, the way Prabhupada uses Vikarma is V means negative karma, bad karma. But he uses here Vikarma in the context of Vividha karma. Again, different types of karma yoga. So it's the same word only, but then it gets a completely different meaning. It's not about only one meaning being right. It is just that you could explain it that way also. Then akarmanascha bodhavyam. So we all know akarmana, we explain akarma as spiritual action, right? If you remember in our discussion, general discussion in Bhakti Shastri, if you have done, karma means good karma, vikarma bad karma, and akarma means spiritual action, we say, like the chanting and all that. But he defines here slightly differently, which is again fitting it in the context what he says. Karma means karma yoga, he says. Vikarma means different types of karma yoga. Akarma means jnana yoga. Because not karma means what? In the whole context is jnana only, right? So he says jnana yoga. Okay. Or right? So that's how he talks about it. And that akarma is supposed to be seen in the karma only. That means Krishna has not spoken of akarma or jnana yoga separately in the Gita. That's again very interesting if you carefully observe. Like we generally say, karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga. But if you see in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has never told anywhere repeatedly that tum karma yoga chhod ke jnana yoga pe aao. I mean, are you understanding what I'm saying? Is there any reference in Gita, or is that a purpose of Gita where Krishna is saying that now you're doing karma yoga, after some time give this up and come to jnana yoga? No, he doesn't say that. He doesn't say that. He has never told Arjuna that, right? He has always told him Karma yoga say he goes to bhakti yoga only directly. That means, are you getting my point?
He goes to Nishkam.
Yeah. Nishkama karma yoga is karma yoga only. But my point is, at no point Krishna encourages Arjuna or the reader of the Gita to give up karma yoga, come to jnana yoga. Jnana yoga is what? The pure jnana yoga is you give up all action and you are just controlling the senses and meditating on the absolute truth, right? Like the 4 Kumaras do. That has not been recommended in the Gita. Na? That is there in the Vedic process, it is there. So please try to understand one thing. That's what I said, psychology of a book. There are Upanishads that talk about this process. Like if you see the 4 Kumaras, if you see the Nava Yogendras, if you see Shukadeva Goswami before quote unquote he became a devotee, what was he doing? He was a jnani, right? Jnani means what? Jnani means one who doesn't do any action in the material world and who is only controlling his senses and focusing on the absolute. That's called as jnana, right? Like four Kumaras, best example. So they are not doing karma yoga. Na? I mean, it's not that they get married, they're finding a job, or they're doing yajna and getting some remuneration from it to maintain their family. Nothing. There is no action only being done by them. Correct? Navayogendras. You will see such characters like Jhadbharat in the Bhagavata. He's not doing karma yoga. He's absolutely not. I mean, he's withdrawn from all action. He's just sitting like a stone, right? Of course, he's doing bhakti, but from the perspective of karma and jnana, he's not doing karma. Are you getting the point? He's not doing karma. Na? Jad Bharat in the Bhagavata 5th canto, can we say he's doing karma? No, he isn't. He's not ready to do anything. His brothers are saying, hey, come on, sit here and take care of the farm. He's just sitting like a dumb person and not bothered only. So that is what is the pure jnana marga. Are you getting the point? This is a valid way of self-realization recommended in the Upanishads. There are Upanishads that talk about this method. Yeah, all that. When they take sannyas. Not when he's in action, but yeah, he gives up karma completely. But the point that we are saying is, this book, which is the Bhagavad Gita, which has its psychology, Krishna has not recommended Arjuna, because if that were the case, then why should Arjuna fight? You're stuck with that whole thing, right? Because Arjuna, at the end of second chapter only, he knew this. Why should I simply fight? Jnana is better, man. Come on. Why should I do all this? I mean, that's what everybody says. Na, why? Office jane ka, ye karne ka, family maintain karne ka, so much difficulty this is. Best, you just withdraw yourself. So nice it is, right? So that's what Arjuna also wanted, right? But Krishna in the Gita doesn't recommend him to do that. Rather, what Krishna says is, in that karma yoga only you see the akarma. That means you see this, when you do this karma yoga with all these principles which Krishna is saying, that means tolerating the duality, this, that, then in that karma only you will experience all the benefits of akarma. Are you getting it? That's what we just said, na? Prasangat swasvabhavokti karmano karmatasya cha. If you see that verse of Yamuncarya, which is the summary of the 4th chapter, it is nothing but karmano akarmatasya cha means ये कर्म योगा में ही आप ज्ञान योगा का सब बेनिफिट देख लो. आप अलग से कोई ज्ञान योगा नहीं करने वाले हो, इसमें ही आपको देखना पड़ेगा. By doing karma yoga that way, in that way, if you do, only then you will see it. Is the point clear? Yeah. So till here it's okay. I mean, we will. Has everyone got what we are saying here at this point? Yeah. Any questions? We can take questions on this till now. Just 1 second. What has happened now? I have sprained or I've done something with my. I did some yogasana actually wrongly and injured this bone. So that's why I'm unable to sit cross-legged for more than 5 minutes. Gayatri. That much only I can say. Yeah, sorry for keeping foot down. There's no solution. Yeah. Any question? Yeah.
This
Anything on this? This 4 verses of these verses of Yamuncarya that we read, and then we will go ahead.
So here it is you jnana karma bhi nirvrityo, which means that you have described that jnana and karma are on the top. The bhakti yoga is
on top of karma and jnana. Yeah.
Karma and jnana.
Yeah.
Bhakti yoga is not independent.
Yeah, Krishna has not described the bhakti yoga completely independent of the first 6. That means Krishna didn't want Arjuna. Suppose if Arjuna would have told Krishna at the end of Bhagavad Gita, hey Krishna, ultimately Sharanagati is good, na? Let me give up this war and simply sit at your feet and chant your holy names. Haridas Thakur did. Isn't he a bhakta? Why should I do all this fighting? Can't I just give up all this whole nonsense war, and sit at your feet with a nice set of beads and chant attentively? If he would do that, is he bhakta? Of course he is. But is that what Krishna wanted Arjuna to do? Is that the psychology of this book? Let's give. See, you're bhakta only by doing it. You understood, na?
He said, "Na karishye vachanam tava," and then
Yeah.
he started fighting.
Yeah. That's what. That's the point. That's why he's saying here, the bhakti yoga which Krishna is speaking in the middle 6 is not cancelling the first 6. That's what he wants to say. That's the commentary given here. ज्ञान कर्मा विनिर्वृत्यो, दैट मीन्स उसको छोड़ के ये भक्ति की बात नहीं कर रहे भगवान, उसको साथ में रखे भगवान भक्ति की बात कर. Is the point clear? We are talking about this book, Bhakti Yoga. Not about bhakti. You can become a bhakta. Like I said, Haridas Thakur was standing 192 rounds. He wasn't, doing any karma or anything like that. He wasn't engaged in varnashram only. The Goswamis were doing bhakti yoga. Right? So that is bhakti only perfectly. And Bhagavatam and so many other scriptures do talk about such a bhakti. Are you getting the point? So, but Bhagavad Gita's bhakti yoga is built on top of it. That's the only point being said. Is that clear?
So the NOD's definition of Jnana Karma Anamritam.
Yeah.
That means Jnana, when it is translated as speculation.
Yeah.
Karma
is fruitive action. Yeah. That is actually not the yoga. Yeah, you're right.
So that is not yoga.
That's not yoga.
It is just free from
fruitive action. Yeah, fruitive action. So that can be supported here also. But even then, even in NOD or in general, Bhakti Yoga is not on top of Karma Yoga. Na? Are you getting my point? That means I'm again making the same point to you. Weren't there so many followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Like tomorrow we are celebrating Gaur Kishodas Babaji's disappearance day. What kind of Karma Yoga he did? Nothing. He was just oblivious to the world. कुछ लेना नहीं देना नहीं था दुनिया के साथ. Correct ना? He just no connection. क्या है कुछ नहीं. He was sitting even in a toilet. He was ready to sit and chant the holy name. Are you getting the point? So that bhakti yoga which people did, na, that was not on top of karma yoga, like what Krishna is saying here, na.
And we see examples of Ramananda Rai or Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya.
Yeah.
So they were actually doing something.
Of course they were. Yeah, they were. Because they were connected, na. They were connected to Varnashram, na, so they had some duties at least. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a Brahmana, he was a teacher, he was a priest, he was the advisor to the king. Come on, he was all that, right? Besides that, he was serving Lord Chaitanya, na? He was not, till end, he was like a priest to the king, na? He was advising him and all that. He had a role.
So that is all, means basically all types of those devotees.
Yeah, there you see all types of devotees.
Okay.
Within Varnashram and outside Varnashram. That means beyond Varnashram, rather, I would say. As in, like the Goswamis and all. Like Sarup Damodar Goswami. He had nothing to do with anything else.
So our take is that we should not give up the karma and jnana and just focus on bhakti. We should not have that interpretation.
I'm not saying like that also. I'm only saying that the Gita doesn't talk about it. One may do that, but at least don't say that is there in the Gita. See, please try to understand. We are just talking about the psychology of this book. We are not talking about, are you getting the point very clearly? The Gita doesn't talk about it like that. Why the Gita doesn't talk about it like that? The Gita is very clear that it is connection with that only. Krishna has never cancelled the first 6 when he's speaking about the next 6. That's what Yamuncarya is saying. Because it's in that connection only he's seeing the next 6 steps. Otherwise, how? How is it possible? Are you getting the point, right? Yeah. Any other question or doubt? Yeah.
This last 6 chapters, we say it's primarily a Jnana Yoga. Means as per our.
No, it is not actually. See, I mean, Jnana Yoga, how do you define it? Na? Because see, try to understand. If you say last 6 chapters are Jnana Yoga, I'll tell you, how can someone speak for 45 minutes to somebody, say something, cancel it, say another thing?
Again, say the same.
Because in the first 6, the whole focus of the first 6 repeatedly is Krishna is hammering to Arjuna that among the two, tayostu karma sannyasat karma yogo vishishyate. Krishna is hammering that among karma yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga is better. ये बोलने के बाद, if you say the last 6 is jnana yoga, independent of, फिर वो cancel हो गया ना पूरा. मतलब क्यों इतना झक मार के पहला 6 चैप्टर बताया, वो सब कैंसिल करके वापस अभी कुछ और ही बता रही हो आपकी, अभी ज्ञान करो बैठ के 4 कुमार जैसे. Then what is Arjuna's conclusion? No, it's not like that. Jnana means, so he has specified it, right? If you see that verse, Pradhana Purusha Vyakta Sarvesh. So he says there are 2 things in the Gita, first 12. There is Tattva and Hita. Tattva means like Prabhupada says, 5 things. Ishvara, Prakriti, Jiva, Tattva. Right? That whatever is left out, Krishna spoke Tattva, first 12 chapters. जो बच गया वो सब 6 chapters के first part में बताया. And then Hita, okay, one is Tattva. Okay, I understood Tattva. I understood Ishvara, Jiva, everything. अभी करूँ तो क्या करूँ मैं बैठ के? What am I supposed to do? Hita, you are supposed to practice Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Whatever you have to practice something ना. सिर्फ तत्व सुन के क्या फायदा? So that Hita is Karmadhir Bhakti Rityadihi. That means Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. उसमें जो बच गया, all that Krishna says. So that's how he is defining it. I at least found as such the definition convincing. I'm unable to take that definition. I really want to see or maybe have a debate with somebody on this point, that why the last 6 should be called as Jnana Yoga. Because if that is Jnana, then the whole thing is, are you getting it? Na? See, every book, it's a book, right? And please try to understand, when Krishna spoke Gita, it was not that chapter ke baad chapter. That means it's not that abhi third chapter khatam ho gaya, abhi fourth chapter, naya chapter hai abhi sixth chapter khatam ho gaya. No, this chapter thing is made by Vyasadeva actually. Correct? It's just a dialogue between two people. And the dialogue has a coherency, right? The dialogue has to be consistent. The dialogue cannot be contradictory. Make sense? Yeah.
And this Jada Bharata's case, when he talks to Rahugunan, he rejects, like he includes everything: studying of Shastras, taking sannyas, performing household life, ideas.
Yes.
All these things will not help unless you smear your body with dust. Yes. So that is ultimately going to come. Like if somebody wants to perfect achieve the perfection, all these things are there, but these are not going to give us the.
No, so that's why you have to understand. No, it's not necessarily like that. Now where Arjuna is giving up anything.
No, not giving up, but the thing which understanding the Supreme Person of Godhead will not come unless you do this.
You do what? You give up all these.
No, unless you smear the body.
Yeah. That is to there only. Na. Bhakti to karna padega na. It's an anga of bhakti. Na. What is one anga of bhakti? Worshipping the Vaishnavas. So he is saying that तुम बाकी सब करो, कर्म योगा बहुत अच्छी तरह से करो. जो पहला बताया वो सब कर्म योगा है ना. But you don't submit to the Vaishnavas, then how will you understand Krishna? So that is the component of bhakti yoga, right? What's happening is somebody here is getting unmuted.
You mentioned also that in 6 chapters that one cannot go back to Godhead.
Yes.
With that.
Yeah, so, that is very clear. One second. So sorry, I'll just. What is happening is I'm managing a class live as well as online. So because of that, what's happening? Somebody gets unmuted. Okay. Yeah. Yes. The first 6 chapter, the goal is Atma Anubhuti only. Self-realization तक लेके आ सकते हैं. Perfectly किसी ने कर्म योगा ज्ञान योगा थोड़ी back to Godhead जाएगा. Self-realization तक आएगा. हाँ, that's connected. Yeah, that's connected. Because this is the anga of bhakti yoga. What he's saying, smearing the dust of the Vaishnavas, is the anga of bhakti yoga. The problem here is, so that part is fine. The problem is if somebody thinks that this is not to be done. There is the problem. So that is Gita psychology. We are talking from that perspective. Yes.
There is a process called Niti.
Yeah. That is Jnana Yoga.
So that is completely Jnana Yoga.
That is completely Jnana Yoga. That is part of Jnana Yoga process. Krishna has not spoken that in the Gita. He's where he said that to be a process karke self-realization. No. Very brief discussion is there when he's talking difference between karma and jnana, but he doesn't recommend it. You understand ना? Recommendation. एक डॉक्टर के पास है तो डॉक्टर बोलता है ना ये 4 मेथड है, लेकिन मैं सर्जरी recommend नहीं कर रहा हूँ. मैं तो recommend करता हूँ ये सर्जरी के बजाय you take this Ayurvedic treatment and you get well. So it's something like that. But the surgery is bona fide. It is there in some other books. But this doctor has not spoken about that. That's the whole point. Are you getting the point here?
They don't do any work.
Of course they don't do.
But they think like how the world is and.
Yeah, like if you see even in contemporary times, you know that Jnaneshwar whom we talk about, na, Sant Jnaneshwar, he's actually Jnana Yogi only. It's not just his name is Jnana like that. But his process was like that. At the age of 21, he achieved self-realization, right? I mean, as in whatever that story, if you see of this Jnaneshwar, he's a pakka Jnana Yogi person. Samadhi, no work. No work as in, like Ajgar Vritti. If something comes. I'm not going to work to maintain this body. So the qualification for Jnana Yogi is given in Bhagavad Gita indirectly. What is it? Krishna says in 3.18, yes, tu atmarati revasyad atmatritasya manava. That means if you have gone beyond bodily consciousness, atmarati, and you derive pleasure only in the spirit, then you can give up work. Jnana Yogi ke liye. But then Krishna says, even if such a person, if he's sitting in society like Janak, then also he should do Karma Yoga only. Are you getting it? So the Adhikari for Karma Yoga is also specified in Gita very clearly. Who is the Adhikari for Karma Yoga? Anybody who is under the modes. Modes ne usko choda nahi hai. Usko to karna hi padega Karma Yoga. No matter who you are. Okay, you may be doing Bhakti Yoga. But if modes are still controlling you, please try to understand. Okay, see, there are, for example, if you see the Alvas, if you see their stories also, many of them, they didn't do any Karma Yoga and all. Why? Because they're beyond the modes. They can only do, right? I mean, they have no, modes are not touching them, na? So when modes are not touching you, then you need not do only karma yoga, because you're not affected by anything, modes. Correct, na? So who is eligible for karma yoga? Everybody who's under the modes, first thing. Second thing Krishna is saying, we're talking about Gita. You are above the modes, great, but you are sitting in society. So Krishna says, na, and that is why Krishna brings himself into the picture. Look at me. I have nothing to give and take with this world. But why am I working? Because I am integrated in this society. And that is the time Krishna gives example of Janak Maharaj, saying that look at this Janak. He was self-realized. He was beyond everything. Mahajan. But then why did he do? Because he's sitting as a king. As a king, if he would sit and say that I am going to do Jnana Yoga now, how does it affect the people? Right? Everybody will think that ye to process hai, matlab, why am I having a wife, children, job, this, that? Ye to acha hai, mast hai. Because see, escaping is very easy, na? It gives a relief, right? It looks more hard work, na, karma. That's why Arjuna also wanted to escape, na? Because he said, who will fight Bhishma, Drona? So much pain and all that. I'm saying just sit back and just think about Brahman. That's what he wanted, na? But Krishna's point is, you're sitting in society, you can't do this. Makes sense? Yeah. Any other last question before I go ahead? Yeah, they may, because see, one thing is Gita is very broad, but honestly, psychology is still different, because Gita psychology is action. Gita psychology is not to give up work. See, that has to be very clear from Gita's perspective. You can take any other book and say what you want, but Gita ka perspective say action. Yes, Prabhu.
All the yogas are there. The step ladder pattern.
Yeah.
Karma yoga, Jnana yoga, and then
Yeah.
is the bhakti yoga.
Yeah.
So how do we understand? Like if we are doing karma yoga,
Yeah.
and gradually you have to reach to the bhakti yoga.
Yeah. Yeah.
And under the modes of nature, like mode of goodness, we worship Krishna and do all the devotional activities. So how we see like whether we are doing karma yoga or bhakti yoga, like how do we understand?
Okay. See, at one point it all becomes one. And then the bhakti yogi, that karma yoga also becomes devotion and service only. Like Arjuna, when he's fighting, we say a simple thing. Arjuna's fighting is also devotion only. Correct? Don't we say that? Arjuna shooting arrow. So there it all, that means that karma yoga, when he becomes a bhakta, even his cooking, cleaning, jhadu mar raha hai, pocha kar raha hai, everything becomes in service to Krishna. Are you getting it? But if you want to technically distinguish, you can do so. Like raising your children. Yes, technically dekha kya to karma yoga ke under aata. But when you become a devotee, when you become a bhakta, when that becomes the purpose of your life, then everything else you do gets subsumed within that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So like that. But technically, if you see, that distinction still remains. Is that okay? Make sense?
We are working in the mode of goodness, or
Yeah.
we are transcending, like doing all these activities.
Yeah. So first of all, modes, I mean, whether we have become free or no, that's a separate question itself. Most of us, it takes a long time. It's a very challenging thing. To be free from modes is a very big thing, actually. I want to talk something about that. Actually, this was just the prelude, but I'll just take one more question if somebody had something. Yes, Prabhu.
एक तो ज्ञान का एस्पेक्ट अकर्म में आपने बताया,
Yeah.
फिर एक जो इम्पर्सनल वाला कंसेप्ट है जो क्लेशो अधिकतरस्तेषां,
Yeah.
वो कौन सा है?
Yeah, that is the pure Jnana Yoga. That means it's something like this. Somebody does pure Jnana Yoga. Take it, like Sant Jnaneshwar. 4 Kumaras before they became quote unquote devotee. Where will they go at the end? Brahman. Wahan se they can come back, and that process is difficult. Like that. Krishna has not recommended that process. Is that process bona fide? Yes, it is. See, we have to understand two things. Is the process bona fide? We have to understand. And the second question we have to understand is, has Krishna recommended it? Are you getting it? Is the process bona fide? Yes. Has Krishna recommended it wholeheartedly in the Gita? Hey Arjuna, come on. Why do you want to do karma yoga? Stop it, do जा रहे. वो तो पहले से वही बोल रहे हैं अर्जुन, मेरे को नहीं कर लेगा ये सब कर्म योगा, मेरे को ज्ञान योगा कर लेगा. Right? 3rd chapter beginning से saying the same thing. So Krishna has not recommended that. In the 3rd, 5th, 18th chapter, wherever this question comes, between these two, Krishna says karma yoga vishishyate. I recommend this. Action is better. Krishna has recommended that. Process is bona fide. It's just a recommendation. It's like a doctor, I said. He has 2-3 surgeries with him. The surgery is correct, he says, but I'm not recommending it for the patient currently. I'm saying that just do this. You will get well in this one. So that's the point. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, now having said this, now we want to do something else now actually. So this was actually supposed to be the prelude, because till now I've been doing everything online. I was not sure how many people heard what, or so I just wanted to, have a basic summary so that everybody's at least on one similar page before we go ahead, because we have had no, I'm not even going to the fourth part. I'm going to do something else only different totally. Okay, so what I want to do now, so this is based on one essay written by one Vaishnava on, refinement of a jiva based on Gita only. So we will be taking this and we will be taking 4 verses from the Gita, Ramanujacharya's commentary. It is just amazing, 2.55 to 2.58. We will look at that and then maybe at the end we will just take a couple of questions once again. Okay. So, in Yamunacharya's second verse, if you recall, you will see a word Susamskrite, correct? Samskriti. So for that, there is a commentary given. What is this Samskriti? So the commentator here, he says, there is Prakriti and there is Samskriti. So he says, man and woman come from Prakriti. That means we are born because of biology, we say, na? That biology is Prakriti. हम लोग सब पैदा कैसे होते हैं? I mean, just because of biology, na? Attraction between a man and a woman, a child is born. So man and woman come from Prakriti, but with Samskriti they become refined. Hill is Prakriti, but carving in the hill is Samskriti. So these are the examples this Acharya gives us. Carving रहता ना कभी-कभी mountain में, that is Samskriti. Kaveri river, he says, is Prakriti hai, Kaveri river, it's just Prakriti. But the temples around Kaveri river are Samskriti. Paddy is Prakriti. Paddy, it grows, it's Prakriti. But the kheer that you make is Samskriti. Cotton is Prakriti, it's growing naturally. But the dhoti and sari that come out is Sanskriti. Screaming, shouting is Prakriti. It's natural to scream and shout. A child is born, children are shouting. That's why it's Prakriti. It's natural. But singing is Samskriti. Okay, because you have to sing, then you have to, really, it's the same thing. It's the same voice only, which you're using to scream. वो संस्कृति करके अच्छी गीत आ रही है, correct? Now this example is a little more gross, but hear it anyway. Passing stool in the bed for a child is Prakriti. But when he learns to go to the bathroom and take bath properly, there is Samskriti. So he concludes by saying, Prakriti becomes Samskriti when you add your Paurusha and Viveka to it. So he says when Paurusha means your endeavor and your willpower, Viveka means your intelligence. When these two get added to Prakriti, then only anything becomes Samskriti. Otherwise, he says if you don't have Paurusha and Viveka, you remain at the level of Prakriti only. Or in short, like what we say, you remain an animalistic platform. If you don't have Paurusha and Viveka in your actions. Okay. So then, this is one author, there's another commentator now I'm using. So the point he makes here is interesting. He says, now I thought this is a very interesting way of presenting Bhagavad Gita to anybody. So he says that if somebody asks you, what are the contents of Bhagavad Gita? This is another way of presenting it. He says there are 4 points in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, for Samskriti of a jiva. That means to make a person Samskriti, 4 points are there which you should understand. First is how to deal with samsara, how to deal with the world. Second is how to deal with your profession. Third is how to deal with your entertainment. And fourth is how to deal with your tattva. That means your astha, your faith. Okay, these are 4 things. We will go one by one. And we will see relevant verses also of that. Okay. So the first major point in Bhagavad Gita is how to deal with samsara. What do you mean by how to deal with samsara? How to deal with samsara means samsara, when you say samsar mein hum pade hai na, like people say na, samsar mujhe bahut takleef de raha hai. So samsar basically means the problems of this world and the emotions associated in the world. Okay, that means there is pleasure, there is pain, ye sab hota rehta hai na. There is attachment to enjoyment, there is suffering, there is repulsion. All these things are put together in this huge umbrella called as samsara. So how you deal with samsara is the big, broad topic in Bhagavad Gita, which helps you become refined. So for this, what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to go into the Gita. So I've just put another PDF on the counseling group. That is 2nd chapter Bhagavad Gita. Please open that PDF. We're just going to look at 4 verses. This is Ramanujarya's brilliant commentary. One of the classic commentaries that I came across of Srimad Ramanujacharya on these 4 set of verses. So just open the second chapter Bhagavad Gita. You could open from anywhere, but I have just sent a text. So please go to text number 55 directly. We're just jumping to text number 55. Yeah. Yeah. So you can see text number 55. Yeah. So we are going. So we always hear this, right? Bhagavad Gita is a book of choices. सुना है कि नहीं हमने बहुत बार? Like Krishna says in 12.8 to 11. पूरा भक्ति योगा करो, ये नहीं हो सकता रेगुलेटिव करो, ये नहीं हो सकता ये तो करो, ये भी नहीं हो सकता कम से कम किसी को तो दान दे दो, मुझे नहीं दान देना. Like we say all this, right? In these 4 verses also you will see a pattern, and this pattern is related to samsara, how you deal with the world. Okay, so in 2.55 Krishna speaks about the highest pattern of how you deal with samsara, which is like a pure devotee dealing. Somebody may say ye to main kar hi nahi sakta. Next verse he will reduce the demand. In the subsequent verse, he will again reduce his demand. And in the final verse of the series, he says, minimum itna to karo. Isse zyada kam main kuch kar nahi sakta. So that is the series here. So this is one example of how you deal with samsara. Correct? Because I said earlier, the 4 themes in Bhagavad Gita, one is samsara. So we are talking about samsara. So look at 55. So we can just recite after me. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Prajahati yada kaman. Sarvan parthamanogataan. Atmanyevatmana tushtaha. Sthita prajnastadochyate. This level, Ramanujacharya in his commentary, he says, this is called Vashikara Samya. Vashikara Samya means, he says, this is the top state as per Patanjali Yoga Sutra. He says, this is the state in which Prahlad Maharaj was there. Prajahati yada kama. No, we will just, be discussing from the Sanskrit. Sarvan partha manogata. Prajahati means, Ramanujacharya defines this word, Prajahati means to give up desires completely. Prajahati, सब कुछ छोड़ दिया. Understanding Sarvan partha manogata. ये सब मन के कारण इतने अलग-अलग desire आ रहे हैं. सब कुछ छोड़ दो. Whatever is coming in the mind. Atmanyevatmana tushtaha. 2 बार आत्मा शब्द है, if you see carefully. Correct? 2 times there is Atma, and Prabhupada also translates the same way as Ramanujacharya has. The first Atma is one Atma is the mind, and other is the Atma, the self. What is Krishna is saying here is your Atma, that means the soul, should take pleasure only in the mind. That means only in the mind, as in after giving up all the desires for enjoyment. In the pure mind which is there, be situated in that and take pleasure in that only. Okay. So that means such a person never takes any pleasure, finds any pleasure in anything in the world. Are you getting it? This is this particular verse, 2.55. This is to deal with samsara. Somebody may say, ye to mere se hoga hi nahi bhai. Ye to bahut zyada hai ye. Right? So this is called as Vashikara Samya. This is a technical term used by Patanjali to describe a state of a yogi who has complete control. He has no desire only now. Like Prahlad, best example. No desire for anything. Correct? Correct now? Now, if you go to the next verse, now you'll understand the difference. The subtle differences come out. I mean, it will become, by the time we go to the 4th verse, it will be quite drastically different. Recite 56 after me. Dukkeshvanut vignamanaha. Sukeshu vikataspruha. Vitaragavaya krodha. Stitadir muniruchyate. So Ramanujacharya here says, in the previous verse, one was not even conscious of material things. But in this verse, the person understands there is something called sukha, there is something called dukkha. समझ में आ गया उसको? मतलब नीचे आ गया level. आप समझ गया ना? Previously, like Prahlad Maharaj, if you ask him the question, was there a difference between the kheer and the poison? He will say no. There was no difference in the two. It was all the same. Because for him, he was not seeing only it as dukkha. When we read the story, we feel, Arey, Prahlad was pushed from a hill, Prahlad was fed poison, kheer is so nice to feed the child, poison is being fed. We are making this distinction between kheer and poison. But for Prahlad, he was not perceiving it. And because he didn't perceive it, the Lord made the reality like that, that there was actually no difference. Correct? But in this verse, which Yamuncarya calls it as Ekendra Samya, based on Patanjali, Ekendra Samya means ये माइंड लेवल पे आ गया अभी, ये आत्मा के लेवल पे नहीं ऑपरेट कर रहा है बंदा, थोड़ा नीचे आ गया अभी. He understands that there is something called sukha, there is something called dukha, but he is at the level where दुखेश अनुद्विग्नमना. अनुद्विग्नमना means he is not disturbed. दुख आता है उसके लाइफ में, not that it doesn't come. He understands that दुख आ रहा है मेरे जीवन में, but he is at the level that okay, this is not disturbing me. It has come, it has gone. I am not getting disturbed by it. If somebody is like that, it is lesser than the previous verse. Are you understanding? This is another way to deal with samsara. Thoda lower level hai. I mean, sorry to call it lower level, but compared to the previous verse, it is a lower level. Okay? How you deal with samsara? Dukkeshu sukheshu vigata spruha. Again, sukheshu vigata spruha means so sukh jab aata hai na, he doesn't jump too much. He doesn't. He's not overjoyed or anything. Sukha, okay. Vita raga bhaya krodha. Again, beautiful definition is it. Raga means future sukha. Raga means Yamuncarya calls it future sukha. Bhaya he translates as future dukkha. Krodha means something that is undesirable happen towards us. Krodha he says is to a person only, not towards a thing. He says you cannot become krodhit towards a stone or something. You become krodhit to a person. And person is another person. Because in Sanskrit, when you are angry at yourself, that is called as nirveda. Khud ke upar gussa. So krodha means specifically towards another person when something undesirable has happened. So he's free from all these three things. Future sukha he is not worried. Future dukkha he is not worried. But he understands sukha dukkha alag alag hai karke. ठीक है ना? तो ये second level हो गया. Somebody may say this level of samsara I cannot do. मेरा संसार ये level पे नहीं है. So Krishna comes to the third level, 2.47. Which Yamuncarya calls this as Vyatireka Samya. Okay, so I'll just define this. So we'll recite the verse. Yas sarvatra nabhisnehas tattat prapya shubha shubham nabhinandati natveshti tasya prajna pratishtita. So the most important thing here, prajna pratishtita. Prajna pratishtita means well situated. So Krishna has included all these people as well situated only. Prajna pratishtita, matlab uska intelligence properly situated here. This verse na, why it is even lesser than the previous verse in level is because Krishna is saying anabhisneha. Anabhisneha means don't become too attached to every situation. Please hear the translation carefully. Anabhisneha, abhi. Anabhi means bahut jada asakt mat ho. That means here it is understood that happiness has come. And you are got attached to it, but Krishna is saying don't get too attached. Thoda, hey, enjoy karo, lekin utna bhi nahi, don't get carried away. That is why that verse again and again comes word. Na abhinandati. I don't understanding. Na abhinandati means what? Happy. Na abhi, too much. That means when something happiness comes, it is in samsara, it is normal that everybody will jump with great joy. Suddenly you got 1 crore rupees, 1.5 crore rupees. Sorry to use that example. That's the only thing we see nowadays. In roughly 10% it's funny. But let's say you made a lot of money in your mutual funds or whatever, wherever you're investing in, right? Holistic investment. बहुत कुछ हो गया. Sensex चला गया 1,20,000 पे और सब मारा मार हो गया. So it's obvious that you will be happy. But Krishna is saying Nabhinandati. That means don't become too much carried away by that happiness and don't be too carried away by the distress. So Krishna here is recognizing that when the distress comes, you will be affected, which please remember is a lesser level than the previous level. Because previously what he said, Dukkeshu anudvignamana. Dukkha. Udhar kya hua ki he understood dukkha has come, but he is not affected with the dukkha. But he understood. In the first level, he doesn't even understand dukkha has come. He is even beyond. Like Prahlad, he doesn't even understand this. This is dukkha. He is just beyond even that. Okay, so successively it is coming down. So this is all dealing with samsara, correct? Nabhi. So Yamuncarya says this abhi, which verse, which is the word which is there. Nabhi nandati. Abhisneha. Do baro abhi word aaya. You see that nabhi, that 2 times it has come. Yes sarvatra abhisneha. Tattat prapya shubha shubham nabhi nandati nadveshti. So that abhi, he says, it applies to that sukha also and that dukkha also. The dveshti which is saying, the dveshti means don't be angry at the misery that comes. Don't be repulsed. That's the word, not angry, repulsed. Here Krishna is not saying don't be repulsed at all. Because he's very practical. He knows that people will say this is not possible. Don't be too much repulsed. You will feel repulsion. Something untoward happens. Somebody says something to you. Gadbad ho gaya kuch relationship mein, kuch problem ho gaya. It is understandable. You will feel repulsed. Because Krishna has acknowledged that now. But he's saying, don't be too much repulsed by it. Too much don't get affected by it. Okay, keep that under control. Keep your emotions under control. Don't be too sad, too happy. Correct? That kind of a thing. Okay, so this is the third level. Now somebody may say, even this is too much. Then Krishna goes to the last verse in this series, which Ramanujacharya calls the Yatamana Samya. Yatamana Samya is the first level where at least everybody should begin. Recite the verse. Yada samharate chayam Murmongani vasarvashah Indriyani indriyartebhyas Tasya prajna pratisthita. We should understand now Krishna has gone even further ahead. Krishna has said that now you are super attached to your happiness, distress and all that, pleasure, pain, everything. But at least now pull the senses from sense object. Don't get carried away only. Correct? That is why he's using the example of the tortoise. That means, see, now this is even more, what shall I say, at the lowest level possible, which Krishna could compromise, at least in this description. Because the previous days, don't become too happy. Now he has understood that this person is not even at that level of samsara. His level is that he really wants to enjoy a lot. Okay, fine. If that's your point, okay. First accept that you are there. But then at least be like the tortoise. Some things you close yourself. Some sinful act is there. Usse to withdraw karo. Which basically means in some other places you will be engaging. That is understood. But now at least, this much you do. Are you getting the point here? That means pull senses from sense object. When the senses go to things which are not supposed to, that means sinful acts, say at least you withdraw yourself. Then also you are called as Tasya Prajna Pratishtita. Are you getting it? So this is one. This is just one. What shall I say? This is. So where did I come from? I came from 4 points in Bhagavad Gita. How to become? I'll take questions. Let's complete this sequence first. 4 points of Bhagavad Gita. First is how to deal with samsara. So Bhagavad Gita is full of that. We just took 4 verses to show one sample. आप बहुत ले सकते हो verses which are all talking about how you are dealing with samsara. Samsara means what? Again, very clear. The world and its problems and the emotions, the happiness, the distress, the sense gratification, the attachment, the aversion. All this is samsara. Okay, and there also Krishna has given levels, saying that okay, this is Prahlad is the goal. We may not be at that. This is there. This is there. This is there. At least from here, slowly keep going up in the yogic this thing. I'll just take questions. I'll just complete this. Okay, so this is samsara. This is one point of how to become susamskrite. So this is all connected to this, that one word of Yamunacharya's, that second verse which we saw, right? Yoga lakshe susamskrite, which I said earlier, na? Paddy is prakriti, kheer is samskriti, like that. So samskriti means that refinement. So like this, when you deal with samsara, you become refined. That's the whole point being made here. So this is one example. There are so many others in Gita, but we are not going to go to everything. Others, I'll keep it very short, 5 minutes, and then we'll take questions. The second, so first broad point in Gita is what? Dealing with samsara. Very good. Second broad point in Bhagavad Gita, this author says, is dealing with profession. Why profession? Kahan se aa gaya profession? Because Gita is full of that. The whole purpose of Gita was to address Arjuna's problem in his professional environment. And that starts from the first chapter, goes up to 18th chapter. Krishna says in the 18th chapter, Swakarmana tammabhyarcha siddhim vindanti manava. It's a classic verse if you think about it. Swakarmana means by your work, tammabhyarcha, you worship me, siddhim vindanti manava, you achieve perfection in that. So right throughout Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about profession. He's talking about Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. He's talking about Arjuna's professional needs. He's telling Arjuna, hey Arjuna, you'll run away from the battlefield. People will laugh at you. They'll call you a coward. Kair bolenge tumko, hasenge tumhare upar. He's addressing profession. Okay. So basically, so what is the Siddhanta in this? The Siddhanta, so what was the Siddhanta in Samsara? I forgot to say that. The Siddhanta in Samsara, I'll come to profession. Siddhanta in Samsara is that pleasure will come, pain will come. Okay. You need not negate the pleasure also. At least, I'm talking about 2.57. Just that, be within that limits. The pleasure will come. I mean, obviously, somebody's house, a child is born. There is so much pleasure. It's unimaginable pleasure when a child is born at home, right? Simple thing. You can't say that no pleasure. No, pleasure is there only. That child is like a, like a ball of enjoy pleasure only, actually, you see, in some sense, right? But then just don't get too carried away. You get money, you get property, you have a wife, you have something, so be within limits. So that is samsara. Don't negate it too much. Don't say that I don't need the samsara. Nahi, aapko need hai uska. Because if you negate it too much, it will come back. Are you getting the point? I mean, so many times we keep discussing all this, right? Fall downs, this, that. So why does that happen? Also, if you carefully, it's connected to this only. Samsara, the need of interacting with samsara is very strong in everybody. Everybody wants to interact. So you can't negate it so easily also. That's another thing that you learn in the Gita. So that is samsara. Second thing, profession. So Krishna's perspective in profession is deal with the world in such a way, profession mein relationship becomes secondary. That profession only becomes primary. That means that professional work only becomes primary in it. The relationship becomes actually secondary in work. How do you see that in the Gita? Very simple. Krishna's entire point to Bhagavad Gita in Arjuna is that, Arjuna, don't get too attached to Bhishma Drona. Usko chhod do, tumhara profession kshatriya hai. You have to deal with it. Chhod do some emotion. That means one very important lesson you learn from the Gita from a professional world perspective is that in the professional world, it's about efficiency. It's not a place to bring emotions. Emotions are in samsara. That means with your wife, children, you can experience emotion. With your parents, with your friends, you can experience emotion. But in the professional world, you can't bring your emotion over here. It is efficiency centric. You have to just do your best. Right? So in office also, right? Sometimes we may have some, like I'm sure all of you have experienced this. In office, sometimes, we may have some bad relation with some colleague, but we ignore it actually. And that person also understands this is not important. We are here to just work. That's it. I may not like you as an individual. To help with that, man. We are just here to do our work together. For that, whatever cooperation I'm ready to do with you. Correct now? But in the samsara, you can't do that. For example, with your wife, if you have a big fight, then you can't say, okay, just let's ignore the fight. Let's just, do whatever is needed right now. No, you cannot. You'll have to address that first. Are you getting it? Because in samsara means emotion is prominent. Profession mein efficiency is prominent. Okay, so this is what Govind Prabhu was telling a good example. He was saying that, I think I mentioned this also in one of my classes. Like when Radhanath Maharaj was, many years back, he was in London for some surgery. Shruti Dharma Prabhu was there that time. He had gone, it seems. And he told the doctor there, the surgeon who did the surgery on Maharaj, he said, it seems that, Maharaj, doctor, this person is like the Pope of ISKCON. Take good care when you do the surgery. So the doctor said, listen, please don't put any pressure on me by saying he's Pope and all that. For me, Pope and ordinary man are all the same only. I do my best in every case. It's not that because somebody is a Pope, I will try harder. Or subsequently, if someone is an ordinary patient who's just nothing, was a bum in the street, then I say, even if it dies, it's okay. No, we try our best for everybody. So it's good if you don't put pressure on us by saying that he's a Pope, because that unnecessarily makes us feel too conscious. But we are going to do our best in every case, the doctor said. Prabhu said he was there at that time when this happened. He said he appreciated the doctor's words because it's in line with the Gita's point that you do your best in your profession. It just doesn't matter who is there. Oh, Bhishma is an ordinary soldier. Arjuna has to shoot the same way. Emotion is left aside over there. That's the whole professional world. Because there's a big lesson we learn from the Bhagavad Gita. The third thing he says, this author says, what is another important, a different dimension in the Gita, maybe that's not emphasized so much, is that this first two which is there, samsara and profession can become burdensome sometimes. So you need entertainment in life. Okay, so he says that is why there is kala, sangeet, itihasa, humor, all these things are there. So to lighten the burden of life. Okay, so that is why, so even in that verse which is there, dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamo sri bharatarshapa. Ramanujarya's translation is that kama is not using it as only sex. He's saying all types of enjoyment. All types of enjoyment which you do in the world, it should not be against dharma. So even, just to give an example, this is one thing at least which I observed in the modern world as in very, very contemporary times, if you see, if those of you are in touch, you may know a little bit about this. Nowadays, a lot of these movies which have some connection to dharma in some way are getting a little bit more popular. People will know that, right? rather, so that is also considered very important, because this is connected to this point. Dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi paratarshava. That means that entertainment should not. That means if there is a movie which shows live-in relationship as the best way to live, then that, or it is showing a very successful live-in relationship also, example, then that is against dharma. So that becomes a problem. But if something is showing, some kind of entertainment, but in line with dharma, okay, where at least the right, are you getting my point? So you understand what I'm saying, right? So in recent times, if you noticed, there are all these movies about Shivaji Maharaj in Marathi. So many of them came, or if you see, even this RRR, this Bahubali type of movies which were there, it had some. I wouldn't again still call it Shastrik as such, but at least the story conclusion was somewhere in it. Dharma was incorporated. It didn't go against dharma, as in it didn't. What shall I say? It did. The conclusion wasn't against dharma, though they may have shown certain scenes which were inappropriate. Fiction is okay. Fiction is fine. In entertainment, fiction is fine. Fiction is not the issue here. So please try to understand. Even in Siddhanta, fiction is fine. Let me tell you. Even in so many Puranic stories are fictional stories. Puranjan story, Pura Narad Muni bata rahe ho, Prachini Bharata, the fictional story, it doesn't exist story like that. Fiction is not an issue. Even Sanatan Goswami's Brihad Bhagavata book which is there. I mean, there are so many people who have said that it was just a fictional story which came up, but that's fine. Fiction is not an issue. The point is, it has to be in line with dharma at the end. It should not contradict dharmic principles, your entertainment. Okay, Yukta Ahara, Yukta Vihara, or all these verses which are there in Gita, this is the point here. You need entertainment, but it should not, that entertainment should not go against family values. It should not be perverted Vikriti. It should not be like that. Okay, this is the third thing which you see in the Gita in some way. There are verses which will talk about that, because there are verses related to music, this, that, and all that. Okay. And the last thing is Mata Shraddha. That means this is the highest thing. Mata Shraddha means your faith. Yeah. Where Krishna is obviously bringing himself into the picture. Where Krishna says that, Sarva Bhavena Bharata, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Right? So many of these beautiful verses are there in the Gita, where Krishna is asking all of us that, why don't you invest your faith in me? Okay, and then I'm that it's there throughout in the Gita in a way, specifically concentrated in the middle 6 chapters, which we saw as Bhagavat Tattva, that 6 chapters. But again, in the 18th chapter also, Krishna brings himself in by very clearly saying that, fix yourself in me. So that becomes the 4th broad theme of the Bhagavad Gita, Mata Shraddha towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so this is one way you can see the Gita. I thought this way is interesting because you could relate to so many people when you talk about this. When you meet some ordinary person, you can tell them, what is the Gita? Gita is talking about dealing with samsara. It is talking about dealing with your professional world. Actually, Gita's immediate point was profession only. Arjuna's profession was at risk. Correct? Because of his old idea of begging and all that. He said that I would rather beg rather than fight. And right? So it's addressing his profession in a way. And then it is addressing the need for your entertainment, for your, vihara, for your, right, for that. So that again comes in so many ways, where you're even these verses that we read today, 2.57, where Krishna is saying, don't be too happy, don't jump too much. Krishna is accepting that you are going to be a little happy only when sense enjoyment comes. You are not going to say that whether you give me, gulab jamun or whether you give me karela bhaji, I'm going to eat it the same way. No, you are not at that level like Prahlad. Prahlad could see that. You are not going to see. But just say, don't jump too much when you see, and don't cry too much when you see Kerala. It's okay, it's fine, it's part of life. So that will also come and say, just take it and be sober in that. So Krishna is talking about the entertainment part, and finally Krishna is talking about his Mata Shraddha. He's bringing himself into picture. So all these things are needed to become Susamskriti. So we're all stuck with this, that one word only. Because in order to become Samskriti, in order to become refined, Samskriti means refined, right? You need to know how to deal with your profession. You need to know how to deal with the world. You need to know how to deal with your entertainment needs. And finally, you need to know how to deal with Krishna, how to deal with Krishna as a person to worship him. And unless you sort all these things out, you wouldn't become refined. That's the basic point here. So for each of these, we could go into several verses in the Gita. I didn't want to do that today. So I took only one example of samsara and I went into 4 verses in the Gita. So obviously later we are continuing our theme of various sections. So at that time, many of these things will keep coming repeatedly, and we could keep discussing. Okay, Hare Krishna. So we just have another 5-10 minutes for questions.
Yeah. More verses are there.
I told you a couple of verses. Yukta Hara, Yukta Vihara, Dharma Viruddha Bhuteshu. Even in the 10th chapter, the verses of, among, so if you see, Krishna calls himself Samaveda, na, among all the Vedas. Samaveda is actually music. If you see, na, Samaveda among all the Vedas, Samaveda is extremely sweet to hear. If you have heard people chanting, our Srivatsa's son is there in a second one, Govind, he sings Samavedas. He's learning. So it's very sweet to hear. If you hear now, it's, oh my God, it's very attractive. Unlike Yajurveda is prose, it's like Jayato, it's prose, but that's song, so you will see that in some places. So all that, entertainment is a very big thing. Entertainment here is not just, obviously, I don't want to say that. Yeah, so entertainment is a very big umbrella that you would find. Entertainment also includes the feeling of happiness, right? The feeling of pleasure, all that is coming under that in some ways. So it slightly overlaps also.
You're telling the Bhaktivinoda Thakur also tells that
you
can do certain things for mathematics and all. Reading.
Yeah. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in this book, Jaiva Dharma, he says that to keep yourself sane, you could read history. He talks about it. Engage in dealing with history because that actually is entertaining if you see in a way. Yeah, you read. No, he talks about contemporary history. He's not talking about Mahabharata. He's talking about. He talks about mathematics and all that. No, that is itihasa. Slightly different. That word is slightly different. Itihasa. There, the goal is more history. When we use that word specifically, it is in the modern context of the
Recent.
Prabhuji, if you see in all these courts, they didn't have entertainment. Like if you see Krishna's court in Dwaraka, they had a joker man, always a jester, they would call. There would be a historian who would tell various stories of kings and all that. Why? Entertainment. People need to be entertained. You can't hold case after case going on. King will get bored, man. What is this nonsense? Kuch to kaani batao yaar, kuch to time pass bhi chahiye humko idhar. So, right, they have a jester who makes jokes. They have this historian who will pull out various stories. Tenali Ram and all these people who are there in our contemporary times or these things. They are all for that purpose only, for that entertainment aspect of life. So please try to understand in number of verses. So these 4 points that I'm making, it is not in terms of uniformity of verses. You will see perhaps more verses about samsara only in the Gita. Profession also you will see a lot. The first, second and fourth, you see a lot of verses in the Gita for that. Entertainment you may see less. Yes. But why that is being said is that is specifically different from the other three. And that has a role in life. The only thing is it cannot be against dharma. That's the whole point. As long as not against it, it's fine. But you can't negate that. Everybody needs it. Right? Everybody needs to, like I remember, I think it was Radhanath Maharaj in one class long back, he was saying that, maybe not in a class, but he was saying in some smaller group, that just like in India, everybody knows about the cricket, what is happening, the latest thing. I mean, we may not be totally into it, but everybody knows what happened. India lost World Cup. Nowadays, there's so many ways to go. So TV has lost its value only, actually. Previously we used to criticize TV and all. It was a big deal. This stuff has everything. It is king of TV. So, right. So we tend to be abreast with everything. So he was saying that similarly in the US, devotees know about this. They have their own games, baseball. He was saying that the Chicago Bulls and all that. In some context, he was saying that devotees tend to be aware of it. Chicago Bulls, aware. Because it's natural. See, it's a human tendency to know that. You can't deny that, say that or devotee now, you should have nothing to do with Chicago Bulls winning the baseball or whatever. No, he said that we know about it. We are aware that this has happened. Our team lost, our team won. People know about it because that's an unavoidable need. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. One thing. I'll just take his. He had a question for a long time. I'll take yours as
well. This one, like when you mentioned, like dealing with samsara.
Yeah.
So when you get 4 degrees.
Yeah.
55 to 58.
Yeah.
So basically, like it speaks about how you deal with Sukha and Dukha.
Yeah.
But 58 tells something different only. 58 will tell you like sense objects should keep from senses.
Yeah, no. So how Yamuncarya connects it is, he says in 58, now in 57, what did Krishna say? Don't become too happy. But somebody who is actually becoming too happy, his nature is what? He will run behind sense objects. If you are too happy for enjoyment, okay, you will run behind sense objects. Nah? It's automatic. It's obvious or no? Can you say that I will not run behind sense objects if you are? Then at least behind the sinful objects, don't run. Control yourself from that. That means it's implied you're going to run after the other things. So what is the whole purpose of the Kurmungani va Sarvashaha? Even when we explain that verse, what do we say? We say that shut your senses towards the sinful activities. That's the whole example in a Kurmaka. So the tortoise, when the enemy comes, the sinful thing comes, the tiger comes to kill, then he withdraws. Otherwise, he's out only. He's always moving around.
In the temple,
correct?
It is there.
So that is one step lower because now you're interacting with all objects. You're not even at that level where you are carried away by a lot of happiness and distress. But at least sinful things say you are sinful aspects of samsara, you are staying away from that. So that is also considered a prajna pratishtita, well situated, Krishna is saying. See, Krishna is very broad-minded. He has not only said that 2.55, okay, that may be great, prajahati yada kama, both high level, but Krishna has called even this person as tasya prajna pratishtita. He is well situated.
400 principles is that what?
Yeah, you can consider it like that. That's considered much lesser compared to the previous ones. Because now you are experiencing a lot of happiness. You want pizza, you want pasta, everything is going on, right? So you cannot say that I am at Dukkesh, Big Namana, Sukesh. You can read it. See, one thing also the Gita teaches, there is a big gap between reality, between the senses and the mind. मतलब हमारा जो mind intelligence है ना बहुत जल्दी आगे जाता है. Like all of us we have amazing understanding of Bhagavad Gita. Everybody here, but our senses are not at that level only. Are you getting? See, that's the reality of life. Are you getting my point? Intellectually, we have understood amazing things about Bhagavad Gita because intellect, but senses they're way behind. Basic problem is senses. It's not stuck at Are you getting the point? That's why in some sense Krishna's that 3.41 verse is very important, where he says tasmatvam indriyanyado, start from senses. You talk to many devotees, they will make this point also. At least in ISKCON now, devotees, we know a lot of philosophy, phenomenal philosophy. We know about the gopis, the right-wing gopis, left-wing gopis, this mood, that mood. Everybody knows everything, right? But where are we? We are at basic, this hotel town is giving fantastic pizza. Why don't I order and eat that? So I'm stuck with that now. As in, I'm at the level of my senses only, right? I'm struggling at that level. But then I know a lot of stuff intellectually, but that doesn't make any difference. It's just that, at least, So it's all starting with the senses. Is that okay? Yeah. Just one more. I'll come. 1, 2, and 3. Yeah.
You mentioned about 3 Siddhanta. First 3 you mentioned about Siddhanta.
First
3 you mentioned about the Siddhanta, but is there anything for the fourth one?
Yeah, Mata Shraddha. Very good. Mata Shraddha also there is. See, Mata Shraddha, again, if you see the Gita, very clearly Gita, Krishna has spoken about himself. Middle 6 he has spoken, end he has spoken. He has told us, surrender to him utterly. Krishna has said that. Surrender to the super soul utterly, Krishna is saying. So Krishna has very clearly said about that Mata Shraddha. But at the same time, if you see even the 12th chapter, you will see that broad mind. We'll discuss that when we go more into the verses. If you see the 12th chapter, I'll just tell you one point since you asked me that question. 1 second, just one point. I'll tell you how all acharyas have described it and how Krishna has described it. You will understand the acharya's magnanimity also, and you will also be able to appreciate Krishna's perspective. In 12th chapter, Arjuna is asking which is better, impersonal path or personal path. So Krishna says, Maya Vesha Mano Yema Nitya Yukta Pasa Shraddhya Pariyopeda Ye Teme Yukta Tamamataha. I consider that. Then if you see 3rd and 4th verse, very interesting verse. Ye Tvak Sharamanadesham Abhyaktam Pariyupasate Sarvatragama Chintam Chakutastamachanam Duram Sanyan Indriya Gramam Sarvatra Samabhutya Te Prapnuvanti Mameva Sarvabhuta Hiterataha. Here he is describing the impersonal path. Correct now? Now, if you see that I'm just telling you, if you see the translation of Srila Prabhupada, you see Prabhupada in the last part, he says, at last achieve me. You've seen that? All of you know what I'm saying, if you have read Bhagavad Gita as it is. At last achieve me. If you go into that verse, you will not see that verse, at last achieve. Krishna has not said that.
In the verse it is.
Krishna is saying that they come to me only. He has not said at last. So this is in one sense the magnanimity of the acharyas. They have said that they have said like that because very clearly the Gita is oriented towards personal Krishna only, and this part is difficult, which is corroborated in so many other scriptures in general also. So they're using it. But if you see again Krishna is also magnanimous, just as acharyas are magnanimous. Krishna's magnanimity is that he has included so many people in his Bhagavad Gita. Are you getting the point? Even in Bhakti Yoga chapter, when Arjuna is asking impersonal or personal, Krishna first he says personal, but then he says even impersonal come to me, he says. But then he says it is difficult. That comes in the 5th verse. It is difficult process, he says. But he has not said that process is, just to be. Are you getting my point? Na? So even in that Mata Shraddha, if you see carefully, na, Krishna's Gita accommodates people, others also. See, that is why everybody likes Gita, right? Even the impersonalists, they use Gita. See, Gita is considered, there is something called Prasthanatraya Acharya. You heard this word Prasthanatraya? If you see this, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada uses this word Prasthanatraya. Prasthanatraya Acharya means the acharyas who have commented on the 3 prasthanas: Shruti Prasthana, Smriti Prasthana, and Upanishadic Prasthana. Shruti Prasthana is the Vedanta Sutra. Smriti Prasthana is the Bhagavad Gita. And the Upanishads are the 3rd Prasthana. So there are these 3 Prasthanas. These 3 are considered the most important scriptures: the Vedanta Sutra, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Upanishads. 108, out of which the 10 are more prominent. Correct? So these 3 are considered. So it is said that no sampradaya exists without commentary on these 3. That is why in Gaudiya Vaishnava, Vedanta was not there. Na? Baladev Vidyabhushan had to write that. Because these 3 are considered 3 prasthanas. Anything you do in your life should be corroborated by these 3. You cannot cancel them. So Gita is also a prasthana scripture. That means it's considered the 3 top scriptures, which incidentally are Vedanta Sutra in the Prasthana Triyod. That's why Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Ramanuja, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers, everybody has commented on all these 3. So why I am saying is, so by itself they are more broad. Are you getting my point? Huh? See, Bhagavatam is a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, which is more direct. But the Vedanta Sutra is more broad in its thing. Right? That's why Shankaracharya did not comment anything on Bhagavatam, because he said that this is too much to contradict for me. Shankaracharya couldn't. Are you getting the point? Na? He couldn't go against the Bhagavatam. But Vedanta Sutra, it's broad. And because it's broad, you can take things from it. So it includes people. But diversity hai na people mein. So it includes everybody. Sabko saath mein leke jata hai ye scriptures. That is their nature. That's why everybody likes these scriptures. You will see impersonalists, you will see Devata worshipper. Everybody takes Bhagavad Gita and says, I follow Bhagavad Gita. And they are not wrong in saying that. They are not wrong in saying that. Because there are things in the Bhagavad Gita that support what they are saying. Because Gita is broad in its base itself. Make sense? Yeah. Yes, Mati. I'll come to you. Yeah. And faith. Sorry, I didn't speak too much about it, but that was very important. Mata Shraddha. Very important.
So when we see our acharyas,
yeah.
Whenever we read their songs,
yeah,
it is always more of crying, begging, I'm
yeah.
fallen, I'm unqualified,
yeah.
I've wasted my life.
Yes.
It's all that mood.
Emono Durmati, yeah.
Always, when we go deeper into it, it is always like crying. So what entertainment do they had?
Yeah. Okay, see, now please try to understand one thing. We are also talking here from a more broad level of humanity, which is accessing Gita. Okay, which includes perhaps most people sitting here. Okay, now when you see the Acharya songs, na, they are not going to obviously talk there about that. Na? See, these songs are all Lalasamai mood. They are all about that desire to get Krishna. So they will all address that Mata part only, which is perfectly fine. Okay. So another thing we have to understand is that when we read these songs also, it's a particular mood that they have, right, in their heart So see, there's also a difference between, so for example, yedana yauvana putra parijana itikacha. What is all this? Wife, children, and all. See, this is a mood in a prayerful context to Krishna. See, so one has to have that maturity where one knows that when I pray like that, it literally doesn't mean that when I go home, my house should be burnt to ashes and my putra parijana, everything would have gone.
They will be carrying this mood all the time, just 24 hours.
Yeah, they may be, because see, now what happens is that Mata Shraddha, when your faith has matured paripakwa, there is called paripakwata of that faith, na? When that has reached a epitome, then you reach that, right? But then you go through that journey, na? You see, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs also, he went through that, but then he had a proper samsara, right? Mataji had 14 children, 8 sons, 6 daughters. His last daughter was born when he was 56. Please see that age. 56, he had his last child. I mean, in today's world, if anybody at that age would even try for a child, people would think what samsara is going on over here. Right? So he had a proper family. He had a full job till the age of 57. He resigned when he had pension from the British government. And then, so I'm not trying to say that. So try to see the songs in terms of the journey of life they had as well. Correct? They walked through that journey of life. Na? It is not that they were. Are you getting the point? At least the Grasta Acharya whom we see like so that's, I give that example because that's more that is relatable to most people like us, because we can see a journey in his life. Because if you see some other Acharya like Gaurkidas Babaji or somebody, then you can't even put your foot in their shoe the first time, because it just starts with completely the whole material world is a toilet in their this thing. Correct? So for that, we have to understand that is where Gita saves us in a way, because Krishna has not said that. Krishna has not presented the world as a toilet to us. Why he has not done that? Because it's a place of contribution. It's a place where for most people, we need that facility of samsara to grow in your spiritual life also. Correct, na? If somebody has become such a paripakwa person, then that's a different thing. But then you have to be truly beyond the modes, right? You can artificially pretend to be there when you're not. And more often than not, we see cases of people who try to go into that, but then when you're not there, then you fall into big trouble later.
Because modern science says we should think positive, we should
Yeah.
think positive about ourselves.
Yeah.
We should be satisfied with it.
Yes.
When we go deeper in the songs, it is like always dissatisfaction, always crying.
Yeah, no. So that is because that's a very deep spiritual emotion. So you can't see that time you can't bring the samsara over there. If you are really gone into that level of advancement, samsara doesn't exist for you. It's like Prahlad Maharaj singing bhajans. Are you at 2.55? First of all, Prajahati Yada Kaman ho gaya kya aapka? अभी मेरे को अच्छा पिज्जा चाहिए, ये गोविंदा का पिज्जा अच्छा नहीं, ये डिवोटी गोलोक में अच्छा पिज्जा बनाते. If I'm at that level of distinction and discrimination, I'm not at 2.55, I'm at 2.57 or 2.58 Gita. So I have to understand where am I in the samsara ladder. Are you getting my point? I have to have a proper assessment of my own sunken level into samsara. And when I read these prayers, at least at the time when I'm reading the prayer, when I'm chanting, when I'm dressing the deities, if I can maintain the mood that I just want you, O Lord, that is the beginning of our spiritual journey. But to say that 24 hours I have to be in that mood, for that you have to actually transcend the moods. You have to actually be at 2.55. You have to have given up all desire for sense gratification. I mean, it shouldn't matter to you whether it is burnt khichdi or whether it is nicely cooked halwa. You have to go beyond all those dualities, which people went through. Correct? Like Raghunath Goswami, I mean, taking that thing with the cow's pat and cleaning that and eating. Are you at that level? Then you can say that. So then you can say that for 24 hours. Otherwise, when you sing that song, cultivate the mood that I only need Krishna life, which is not a hypocrisy. Genuinely, we want to be in that mood. But just that I'm not there right now. That because there's a gap between my mind, my senses, my mind, my intellect, and my soul. There is a gap between all of it. My soul's aspiration is that. But where are my senses? Where is my mind? Where is my intellect? वो सब अलग अलग जगह पे है. So when I've got all of them in line, then I can say what you're saying. ना तभी तो मैं बोल सकता हूँ कि ठीक है ये मेरा 24 घंटे का prayer है. Otherwise, I mean, if we say it will be a joke, I mean, somebody will laugh. Like, are you getting the point? No? Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I guess we have to end. So maybe we'll just take one.
This is Ramana's description based on Patanjali. Something similar to what Prabhupada says.
Yeah. It's all like that. Yeah, you can say certainly. That is Uttam only. 2.5 is Uttam. It comes down slowly in the hierarchy. Kanishta is at least expected to be like the tortoise. Yeah.
Worshipping impersonal.
Yeah.
Is very troublesome.
Yeah. Klesho dikataras tesham. So 12.5.
So Muslim Dharma is following that only. Is it bona fide religion?
Oh, that's a totally. I mean, that is bona fide as in what? There is. I mean, I have. See, please try to understand. In their religion, first of all, it is even improper to compare. It's like, when you get two things for comparison, like there has to be some level, to compare it. Those books are about faith being driven. There is no choice in those books. See, why is the Vedic system confusing? Because it's a book of choices. Even Gita, levels है इसमें, उसमें ऐसा कुछ level नहीं है. Kafir, non-kafir. It's a gross distinction between kafir and non-kafir. Means one who believes in Allah, one who doesn't. He's condemned. He can be killed according to their scripture. It's not wrong. It's given. Our scripture is about killing adharma, not about killing unfaithful people. Duryodhana was faithful. Please remember, Jarasandha was a devotee of Krishna, of Shiva. He was not. Jarasandha was not atheist. Ravan was not atheist. They were asura. They were demoniac. मतलब जो बोलते हैं ना अधर्म, अधर्म और अश्रद्धा में फर्क है. इनके सिस्टम में वो नहीं है. इनके सिस्टम में श्रद्धा नो श्रद्धा. Are you understanding? श्रद्धा नो श्रद्धा. हमारा सिस्टम में श्रद्धा नो श्रद्धा का डिबेट नहीं है यहाँ पर. मतलब आपको श्रद्धा रहेगा भगवान के ऊपर, but if you are adharma, you have to be killed. So the person, somebody XYZ has to be killed. Are you getting it? Like Ghatotkacha. He was adharma. He was the son of Bhima, very loving everything, but against dharma and brahmana. So Krishna said, this इसको मारना ही पड़ेगा हमको, इसको नहीं छोड़ सकते. अच्छा हो गया उसने मार दिया. It would have been very difficult for one of us to kill him because of family relation. अच्छा हो गया कर्ण ने मार दिया उसको. Krishna was clapping. Very good. Because our scriptures is about dharma, adharma, not about shraddha and no shraddha. So this is more fundamentally correct. Because what we are saying is you may be an atheist also, but if you are in lines with dharma, the universal laws of conduct are more important to be followed. That is why in their system, the terrorist who walks with a gun, he says that there's so many instances in the past have happened, right? Where they say, if you're not a Muslim, I shoot you and I go to heaven. They have that understanding. I mean, you see that 2611, those video that was made later, that one of the Kazak's accomplice, छत्रपति शिवाजी स्टेशन के बाहर आ गया, नॉक किया, पानी पिया किसी के घर से, उड़ा दिया उनको. Because he said that you don't have shraddha in my Allah, so if I kill you, I'm going to heaven for that. Because it's given in the scripture like that. It is a book of shraddha. Our books are not book oriented towards shraddha. It starts with nyaya first. Nyaya means the system of logic. वहां से शुरू होता है धर्म. Then श्रद्धा बहुत बाद आता है. आप श्रद्धा रहा न रहा, पहले का है क्या? That is more important. So there are so many people who had shraddha but who didn't have the basics. They are knocked off. Like all the examples I gave. Duryodhana was not an atheist from that time. He believed in God. He did sandhya. He was not atheist, but he was adharmic. Because he right. So this is very important. We can't even bring those books here. As in they have there's no way to even compare them. Yeah, okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitaya Gaur Premanande. Hare Hare Bol.